So that's another instalment of everybody's favourite series, GrantTree Fundamentals.
Welcome back!
Just to remind people that this is about the constitutional core of the business. It's the stuff that applies across everything that we do. And it's about creating the culture and understanding the role that we have to play in that. If we want to benefit from it, we have to make it. There are three key things at the heart of open culture. There's trust. There's a belief that people are worthy of trust, people have good intention, people act responsibly, people are motivated. There should be as much power in the business as there needs to be. Everybody should have as much power as they need to get their job done, and people should be able to be free to exercise that power. This is an advice process, as almost everything that we do is an advice process, because the advice process is what self-management is. So we're putting this out there for people's feedback and advice over the coming week. The focus on this presentation is, I call it trust and citizenship. And I really want to start with the idea of trust, because it's obviously something that we talk about quite a lot. So it seems that there's a bit of a contradiction in the way that we talk about trust. So since we started doing the fundamentals presentations, we've had this idea that trust is a constant, right? Trust is something, if you like, right? Trust is a constant form. That trust is something that we give to everybody, that we think everyone is worthy of, and that's an underpinning idea of open culture. But at the same time, you may remember this, we talked about it before, the 3 C's of trust: character, competence, congruence, and we've talked about things like trust capital and trust building and trust going up and down. So there does seem to be this contradiction between the idea that there is this trust that we give to everybody, but at the same time, trust is kind of variable. So my proposal of a resolution to this, and a way of thinking about it, is that we do give trust to everybody, and we do make the effort to give everybody our trust. But sometimes it's easier to trust people, right? There's an ease of trust. So, you know, through that combination of character, congruence, and competence, we make it easier for people to trust us. Now, if there is this trust that we give to everybody, this kind of unit of trust that everybody is allocated, why do we have what we call a trust-building period? You know, shouldn't everybody be worthy of that trust from day one in the company? So what we're proposing is that we don't have a trust-building period or a trial period or probation or whatever you want to call it, but that everybody has full citizenship at GrantTree from day one, which means full access to the advice process to change their role and to change the shape of the business. Now, why is it that we have this trust-building process? Why have we put it in place? The simplest answer is because it's just kind of custom and practice. So the standard employment contract template that we have just says, you know, there's a 6-month probationary period. So we're like, all right, okay, there's a 6-month probationary period. I mean, there's more to it than that. And it's evolved into this time in which we try and find the sweet spot between your needs and the business's needs. It's a chance for us to try out working with someone and for them to try out working with us and to see how that goes. Now, of course, we still want to do that. We still need to find that sweet spot. We still need to get to know each other. But our question is, why should we do it over an arbitrary period of 6 months? Right? If something isn't working, why not deal with it now? Why not have that conversation straight away? So this is what we're saying, really. If something isn't working, I'm responsible for helping to fix the problem or for ending the relationship. So there isn't a period in which we do this. That's a responsibility that applies all the time. And these are the ways that I think that this affects us. You know, this applies to everybody. It means that we treat people who are new to the company the way that we treat people who are, you know, old hands who've been here for a while. That is to say, if you imagine someone, like, well, imagine Dan becomes disaffected and the quality of his work goes down, what do we do? Do we just run an advice process and say, Dan, you know, you're arbitrarily ending your employment? Or do we work with Dan and sit down with him and say, you don't seem to have found a spot, Dan, what can we do to help you? Or me, or whoever it might be. You know, we treat everybody the same. We also have this extra motivation to help each other. We say all the time, well, we want to give each other feedback all the time in line. It's really important that we help each other understand what's going well, what isn't going well. Well, this provides an extra motivation. You know, for people new into the company or new into a specific role, that's kind of when you need the most feedback, when you're finding your feet. Well, there's nothing that you can hide behind. There isn't a kind of end of a 6-month window when you can just deliver all the feedback that you didn't get around to. If it matters to you to say it, you have to say it. There's that extra motivation. So that also increases our power and with it our responsibility. So it seems like it's a good open culture solution. You know, it puts us more in control, and I think it also treats people fairly, and more than that, it makes us behave honourably. Because if you think about it, if we're saying you have the responsibility to either work with this person to fix the problem, or to work with them to end the relationship, thinking about it as ending a relationship, you know, when we end relationships, we want to behave honourably. We want to behave in a way that when we look back on it, we can say, yeah, you know, we did the right thing there. We were honest with that person. We gave them an opportunity to you know, respond to our feedback. It didn't work out, and we parted on good terms. What we don't want to do is be, you know, ending the relationship, but sort of say, well, it's kind of the end of the trust building period, so, you know, disguising from ourselves the fact that this is something that we're doing. So thinking about how you might work with someone to fix a problem, right, if there is one, this is a slide that we've looked at before, the things that you can do to change what you work on. And the reality is, for some people, the solution is going to be to find a role somewhere else. You know, it's not always going to work out. And I think for me, there's a great metaphor here, which is, you know, if you're trying to grow a vine, the thing about a grape is that you can have a vine that you've got from an excellent stock, and you can be growing it in what is excellent soil, in an excellent climate, but it's actually the combination of those things that come together. You know, you can have a good vine that doesn't flourish in this soil. It goes back to that concept of, you know, 2% truth. It's always at least 2% true that each of these factors was contributing. If it doesn't work out for somebody at GrantTree, was it them? Was it the work? Was it us? Well, it's some combination of those things. And we shouldn't think of it as a failure. You know, we should just think of it as one of those things that didn't work out. It's something that we learned, it's an experience that we had. Hopefully we've all gained something from it.
But at the same time, it's worth restating that we shouldn't also not just think of it as, oh well, it just didn't work out, so you're going to go away, and you know, that's a very, very small thing, and don't worry about it. Because actually for people to be told that we've decided that we should leave is a big thing, and that we shouldn't have this process, this trust building period process that kind of hides the fact that a dismissal is happening, because that is an important process for the person on the receiving end of that, but it should be treated with due attention, with due care.
Yeah, I think we have to, you know, we have to be honest with ourselves about the fact that it's the end of a relationship. But nevertheless, you know, we shouldn't see that as a situation where we have to apportion blame and say, you know, whose fault was this? But rather just say, okay, well, some combination of factors. It's still the case that when people are new to the business or new in this particular role, they need a bit of time to settle in. You know, so although I was saying earlier, well, why do we have this kind of arbitrary 6-month window? Well, it is a bit of a rule of thumb, you know, that people take 3 months to get into a role, and kind of by 6 months in, you should know whether it's working or not. And it seems to me that it's still reasonable to work with that rule of thumb for when you're new in a role, to have the expectation that you've got that period of time to get up and running, and for other people to give you that and to make allowance for that. But as I said, it's about not having this arbitrary endpoint where it's at the end of 6 months you get all the feedback, but rather, you know, kind of having feedback as you go. This only works, as with all of this stuff, if we get the stuff rounded correct. So the crucial stuff that we need to do to survive if we say, okay, we're going to take away a probationary period, is hiring. Obviously we're getting better and better at hiring, and it's really hiring for cultural fit and hiring for the self-managing environment that's the challenge. And I think we've got, you know, miles and miles better at this over the course of this year, but we're still working, obviously. The joining process, and hopefully the GrantTree Fundamentals series is going to help people who join understand what the self-managing environment is like and what the expectations on them are. But I think we can still do more, and we know that we can do more about setting expectations explicitly. And included in that is, you know, understanding how we make commitments to the work that we're doing and stuff that people can call us to account on. And we also need to get the leaving process right. So if we are going to end the relationship, how does that happen? How does that get initiated? How do those discussions happen? And we'll obviously come on to those in future weeks. So I just wanted to conclude the presentation bit. Oh, got a bit weird there. Conclude the presentation bit before we put the floor open by just recapping the thing that we're really seeking advice on here. The proposal we're making is no probationary period, and that people are kind of full GrantTree people from day one. So,
just to clarify that, there will still be a probation period from a legal perspective in the contract, because it makes it easier for the person to walk out, for example, if they, like somebody else has in the past, if they walk in, they realize this is not the right job for them and they just want to leave right away, it makes it easier to break off the relationship early on. But it would not be a probation period in the sense that we've been applying it, i.e. a period where you're being evaluated and then at the end there's some kind of vote that decides whether you're worthy to stay or not. So that's what we're getting rid of. Or planning to get rid of.
So the emphasis is going to be much more into hiring and getting the right people for that role. But the difficulty is obviously not shifting so much work onto the team that they have far more hoops to jump through in order to get those people in, because we're doing it via our team as well. So that's going to be quite a difficult thing to manage.
What do you mean shifting more?
So the hiring is going to be something that needs a lot of work on, so we make sure we get the right people in from day one.
Yeah.
But that work is going to be done from within the teams. So the work's coming back on the team to do, but it needs to be thought of very carefully. So it's not just something that's going to take up someone's, like, to hire a new person. I can't be there for like maybe a week and a half. I get like a solid few days to get this done. It needs to be just.
Absolutely, the idea is not to shift. Plus, ultimately, there's a kind of diminishing return, I think, on the time spent on the hiring process. Ultimately, I don't think necessarily that's that much better information from interviewing somebody for 3 days solid than you can for 1 day solid. It's obviously important that we are diligent through the interview process and that people are really committed to doing this well. They realize that when they do hire somebody, they are here for good. So there is a responsibility that people take seriously to hire people that they really want to work with. But that, I don't think that necessarily maps to adding more and more steps and necessarily to the hiring process until it takes 6 months to hire somebody. I don't think that would be very practical.
I'd say this is a glossary at the moment. I don't think this is the process, or there's no tools or evidence or promises or proposals here. It's just a glossary as to, if we get brilliant people in, all these problems will be solved. Well, how are we going to do that? We're going to focus on working with brilliant people. This is at the moment just a glossary. It's like very much the first step in a long journey. So I think what Jay's saying is, how are you going to distribute this work? Who's going to be doing this work? Who's going to be making sure we get the right people? Have we got people in the company that have got the time to find the right people? How much time is going to take away from their day jobs? These are things that need to be answered and solved. What we've got, and it's a fair point, but it is just a glossary. It's the first sort of.
I'm not sure what you mean by glossary.
Where are we going to find the right people that have got all these skills from?
So how do we find them out?
Well, we haven't sometimes. Sometimes we haven't, sometimes we haven't.
Well, sometimes we have. So
okay, well, where do we get those people?
Well, I think that's the people who are looking to hire people into their team. That's part of the challenge. That's kind of how self-management works, isn't it?
Yeah. But no, I just find this is sort of like the first baby step. It's not. It is a glossary. It's very nicely summarised.
Can I? And beyond hiring, beyond the people the resources that we're going to need for hiring, this will also require a lot of mentoring, coaching, because once you're in this committed relationship, you're going to have to you're going to require a lot more from the team in order to put in the effort to work with that person, particularly when that person isn't performing to what the team feels is satisfactory. So yeah, I feel like there also needs to be a very well-defined accountability for those people these people are accountable to help these people to help the new joiners to get to the place where not only are they just full citizen, but they're also trusted, and that there's as little resentment of the team as possible. Because what you will have here is that if they're full citizen and they are not performing well, it's only going to cost major resentment.
So there's a lot of with all this culture stuff, there's a lot of things that are connected that need to be improved, need to be clarified, need to be defined more clearly, and there's only so much brain space and so much time available to make progress on this. what we're trying to do with these fundamental talks with the constitutional core and with the one-to-ones is to bit by bit clarify all those different things and progressively pin down all these different processes that need to be functioning for the management culture to operate well in the way that we want it to operate. We obviously can't do everything at the same time. There's only so much time. And some things also we learn from practice. But what we believe, what we're proposing right now is this particular change to the trust building period. And what is coming next, absolutely, you're totally right, is things like changes to the support that people get when they come in. And there's been several ideas floated when I've been asking people for advice. Several really interesting ideas that have been floated by several people. They also need to be a dismissal process, something that we haven't had before, so that needs to be defined. To me, that's the next highest agenda point, possibly for next week or maybe the week after, but something coming very, very soon, because that needs to be working for this new vision of trust building, or basically this removal of the trust building period to function. And there's also stuff impacting the hiring. Not very surprising that something like a probation period is basically connected to both hiring and firing and support to people coming in. We can't define everything at once. We're defining this piece, and this highlights also the next few pieces that need work.
Well, I think getting the right support for people when they come in is important, and we know that at the moment, you know. And we know that getting that right, striking the balance between how much support do you offer someone when they're joining a self-managing environment. You know, we look at other people who are going through the same kind of transition as us, like that excellent article you posted from Buffer on HipChat. You know, they were saying, oh, we tried it this way, and now we're trying a bit more this way. Like, getting that balance right between bringing people into an environment and saying, it's a self-managing environment, sort of sink or swim, and getting support for the rest of the team. I think that's something that we want to get right as part of implementing open culture.
But we just said we know that. What we need to do is find that balance. Identifying it, it's been identified, it's resolving it, solving these things. That's the imperative thing. I think a lot of these things have been addressed by everybody in this room and have been discovered and been spoken about. And because, with all honesty, you've not necessarily been a part of it, I'm finding there's a presentation here that happened a week ago with conversations, or 2 weeks ago, when the CMs had to have their probation periods.
So I understand that there might have been a conversation that happened, but I've had a chat with about a dozen people in this company, like over the last day and a half, about this. And no offense, you're the only person, honestly, who said this has already been decided. Everybody else saw this as a new idea. So I appreciate that there are multiple conversations that happen in this company. We're trying to make these things a process of the company, not just a part of the company.
To put an analogy on it, I find this a little bit like when Labour banned fox hunting. It was a very easy thing to announce, but nothing's been done to enforce it yet. So you've not thought about the infrastructure, how we're going to involve it, the level of work it's going to entail. You've just gone, I like this is going to be good, let's bring people in and make their life easier and get the probation period. And it's great, it's crowd pleasing, and I love it, but these conversations happen. What I want to know is, how are we going to do it, what's the level of involvement, who's going to be responsible for it, whose time is it going to take up, how have we got the manpower to have it? Those are the things that need answering.
Okay, so you want all the answers for the next 6 months today?
No, well, if that takes 6 months, that's far too long. That shouldn't take 6 months. That's not 6 months worth of work.
So there's ramifications of basically saying we're going to roll this out until we've done the other 2 elements, which is the dismissal process and the hiring thing. So it is a great idea, but until you have those 2 things locked down, if we run with it, it may just trip us up later down the line.
Well, aren't those not in themselves enormously important things for us to get right?
Yeah, of course, yeah. But that's what I think. That's what I think Don's saying. It's like get these things in place first and announce it as one complete process. We know that we can roll this out and it would work. Because there's an idea, like definitely agree with it. Like this is much more GT and it feels much better. But we need those other 2 things in place for it to actually work.
But I think it's what Dan said.
I'm just going to interject on that because, like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, Jason. But at the same time, there's been a bunch of criticism leveled at culture stuff and everything else about pontificating and waiting too long and talking about stuff too much. So it's not clear right now where the balance is between those two things. Because yeah, I see your point, but you know, if we'd waited and had a bunch of conversations about this, they would have been quite open to, oh, this is just taking too long, there's too many conversations happening, and you know, so where do you see the balance lie?
I think the balance is where you guys are just reporting stuff that you can deliver on, move quickly on. So I think everybody in this room is like, that's a fantastic idea. Like, it does make sense. I spoke to you yesterday, it completely makes sense. But you need those other things in place to actually make this happen. So otherwise it's just, we're just talking about something and agreeing with something, but we can't roll it out until we have those other things there. So if you just focus on getting that stuff done and then just presenting that as a full-blown conclusion, then people will...
I would say that unless we're planning to dismiss somebody in the next week, we can probably wait until next week to present the dismissal process.
Yeah, but we are hiring people like this week, next week, like new CMs who would fall under this, but we haven't necessarily talked about how we're going to bring them on, how we're going to integrate them, how we're going to vet them better from day one. And this is stuff that's happening like this week, next week.
I think what they're saying is you just had the wrong order. Really, you should have started this week with, this is how we get rid of somebody, you know, the leaving process. And then next week should have been, this is the idea going forward. That's just advice, I think, that they're trying to say in a nice ways.
Yeah.
Maybe it is only a week, so it doesn't really matter. But actually, you just had the wrong order because it's, you want to start with the bad stuff and then go to the headline stuff, not start with headline stuff and then try and work out how to work it afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, or alternatively, we need to build the leaving process with the fact, you know, with it agreed that this is the way that we're going to work, is to not have the, you know, because if we say, okay, we have this 6-month period and there's an advice process at the end of it, then it's like, okay, well that's kind of part of our hiring process, and the dismissal process, the leaving process is built with the fact that this is in mind. Alternatively, we say, okay, we don't want to have this, and that's the decision. So we need to build the dismissal process with that in mind. Now we've established that that's the...
So those things are all connected and they all interact with each other. And I did receive feedback from a few people that asked for advice that they felt the dismissal process came first. But there's only so much we can do in a fairly short amount of time, and where we had to make a choice either to delay this and do the dismissal process next week and then do the trust building period, or to do the trust building period this week and do the dismissal process next week. And at the moment it felt like it was worth bringing this out there. We haven't made the decision yet, we're still doing an advice process on this, but it felt worth bringing this up and getting the advice on this now, especially because it will influence also the dismissal procedure as well.
I think if a lot of this, and Chris is right, which is we talk a lot about deliberation and over-deliberating and not acting on it. I do feel that a lot of this work had been done in front of the company. Discussions would have happened much quicker, not as in like work then a week, work then a week. Like I said to Dan earlier on, when we do the grant writing, we work together, and what it stops things happening is that. And I think if you guys had worked like that and had that open level of communication, we wouldn't have sat here and gone, we'd have probably been like, yes, those are things that I'm doing, this is brilliant, guys, keep up the work. And I feel that it's sort of like you guys walk away and then come back and present and then walk away and don't have a handle on all the stuff that's going on in the office and the communication and talks and all the things that move on and advancements that get happening whilst you're not sort of doing it.
Again there, I would repeat that most people in the company were not aware of this work happening, including myself and Andrew, and all the people I spoke to. And this work, to clarify, started on Friday and happened mostly over the weekend. And if people want to join into the conversation over the weekend, I'm very happy to do so, but I do believe that other people probably want to have weekends where they relax and don't just do more work. So like, you know, there is, I totally agree, and everybody wants to know about these kind of processes happening. If there are other people who are working on central processes like that in the company and are not communicating into the wider company, please do communicate it, because we can't know through sort of
your processes is, we're working on something, come and tell me if you're working on it. But, you know, we don't know what you're working on, so I can't, either I come to you and say, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, and you go, we're doing that, or you let us know what you're working on and allow us to input.
So and also
this conversation started with, this is an advice process. I feel you presented an advice process, and what we've got is defence for what the advice you're being given. So people are returning advice to you, and I'm feeling that it's a bit like, oh well, you could do it this way, why don't you do it this way? You can't have an advice process, ask people for advice, and then sort of defend your actions. People are giving you their advice, and these are their feelings. So they should be taken on board.
I mean, they're absolutely, I mean, they are being taken on.
I don't think I'm defending against the advice. I'm defending against the accusation that we've done this thing completely separately, as if we've spent weeks working on this without talking to anybody else. When in fact, I think if there has been work done on this in some parts of the company and it hasn't been communicated to anybody, basically, the onus is really on the people doing this work to get it out there and get people to know about it. Because if I don't know, if you sit by yourself, or if we sit by ourselves and we solve this problem and we don't tell anybody else, we haven't solved anything really.
Well, what I would say is who was heavily involved in the recent processes? And have they been spoken to? So I'd say, have you spoken to Ash? Have you spoken to Jeff? Have you spoken to myself? Because those of you have flags, those are 3 clear flags of people that have been heavily involved in stuff.
So you were the first person I spoke to on Monday morning.
Yes, this Monday.
This Monday.
Yeah. So
remembering this work started this weekend.
So we had yesterday.
Can I just do it? Yeah, I don't know. Just to say, like, I mean, with the stuff around trust building, I know, yes, it's getting a bit heated, but the stuff around trust building is an ongoing discussion. We've had some people within trust building, and that's come to an end. I've spoken with you about it. I've spoken with people who are involved with the trust building periods that are coming to an end. This is a continuation of those discussions. That's what this is. It's not like actually there's been some separate discussion, not taking into regard conversations that have been had. This is a culmination of that. This is just a progression.
Well,
it might appear differently, but it's not.
It feels very separate. And the fact that I've listed 3 people that are heavily involved in it, and unless you can challenge me, I'd say they weren't contacted. It feels strange that all this has gone on, all this has been amalgamated, but without the 3 people that are heavily involved with it being brought in to talk about it.
Don, you were contacted at 10 o'clock in the morning on Monday.
Yeah, that was 24 hours ago.
Do you know what? This is actually turning into a he said, she said thing. So
let's
actually,
take this conversation offline. But I absolutely hear that what I'm understanding is that you want there to be more dialogue about this stuff. You want there to be more communication about this stuff.
Just quickly, can we unmute? So you muted the remote people.
Muted the remote people.
oh.
Thank you.
Or is it delete?
No, they're not muted.
I thought they were supposed to be on. They
They're
are
muted.
They are.
But this is us
Hello?
muted there.
Yeah.
Chris has lost sound.
The answer yes. Wait, I thought you guys were supposed to be on Mongo.
No, it's on Hangout.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Will, you have a question?
Yeah, so as someone who's in the advice process,
In the trust
I enjoy the fact that there's a level of certainty over when I'll be assessed and there's something to work towards, and it's something that I feel I can get feedback in advance of informally. As someone who's in that, I enjoy that certainty. Perhaps it's by no means perfect, but I like that. Have you considered that and building that level of, you will be ingratiated fully at some point? To me, that's valuable.
Can I add something to that? When we had our trust building periods reviewed lately, afterwards Jeff and Ash came up with a document, and it had general CM expectations on it, so a list of things that they wanted from us. In terms of like the setting expectations, this thing I think makes it more okay for there to be expectations for a new joiner to list out and say, well, this is what I expect too, and it makes it more of a two-way process. But in terms of like knowing definitely where you should be and what's expected of you at different points, on this list it hasn't been completed yet, but for each thing that a client manager is supposed to do, there's sort of an expectation of at what stage you should be at 1 month, 3 months and 6 months, so it sort of helps you understand what other people expect.
To build on that again, Wendy and I had a discussion this morning when we were talking about the trust building process, and I sort of mentioned the usefulness of maybe having an interim, so a 3-month informal discussion about how you're going, which helps get to 6 months as to whether you'll hire, fire, or extend it. So I actually building up of information formally is actually quite useful.
Yeah.
I guess you're considering that within the new system.
Yeah, there was a really great suggestion that came from several people. Joanna, being a mediator for when people have negative feedback and they don't know how to approach a person, and also, as Robin pointed out, going out and seeking that feedback, like asking other people, how do you think they're doing? Is there anything that you haven't said? And having chats with people to help get that feedback process flowing in this initial period. Because when you've been working with somebody for a year or two, you're probably very comfortable by then sitting with them and saying, hey, what's going on here? I'm a bit uncomfortable with what you did there. But when somebody who's just joined a week ago, you might be like, oh, this is a bit of an awkward conversation.
So within that, to me, having a formal structure where people are not forced but encouraged and encouraged to give constructive feedback on the new employee is actually a good thing for me. As a new employee. So I'd like to see that creating some kind of
yeah.
I also think this is something, this is something we've been talking about over and over again, which is, and Chris will vouch for me on this, I give feedback verbally. Okay? We should be talking to new starters and turn around and say, right, this is the sort of thing we're looking to offer, this is what we'll do. How do you receive feedback? How do you receive it well? How do you prefer to receive it? Would you like it, trickle fed? Would you like a meeting at the end of each week? And sort of not quite tailoring it, but asking them what's the best way. Because, if they are somebody that receives verbal feedback well, like Ish loves it, and he said it over and over again, give me feedback, I want feedback. But somebody might not be like Ish. And that's the thing, we've got to stop this sort of like rolling out sort of one-size-fits-all solutions.
You're saying people are different, are you?
I am.
So Don, we're talking about having a person assigned to each new joiner, figuring out how to deliver feedback to that person. That is a bespoke custom system for each person.
Brilliant, let's do it.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably a good thing for the first month or so. But I think I was saying to Wendy earlier, the thing about this is sort of what we were saying as well. At the 6 months, you sort of know that it's coming, and it's not such a although it can be unpleasant. But this thought of having the leaving process, the dismissal process, is probably a bit more awkward because it seems more formal. When it's at the end of a probation period, it's less like firing, it's more like, sorry, it didn't work out. Whereas if it's a dismissal process, it is probably going to be a bit more awkward. But the thing about all the communication stuff we're doing is trying to get over that awkwardness. So although I think it's a good thing to have a buddy at the start, someone that can help you and sort of work out what's best for you with the how to deliver feedback and speak to other people about it, I don't think it's something that should go on for a long time because it's getting used to those awkward situations that all of us need to be working on.
Yeah, and I think that's the point that it motivates us to help each other is that that we have to give each other feedback and actually not allowing it to understanding that we can't just not say something to people and say, well, if it doesn't work out, 6 months will come and I can just have avoided that conversation altogether.
I think it's a bit of a legacy thing whereby we're using the 6 months as like a deadline where if this works and works well, every day, every week, you're going to know where you are. And if a month goes by and you haven't picked your game up or haven't risen to the challenge or whatever, however you want to refer to it, you in your heart of hearts will be at a point where you go, I'm not right for this. And you'll know that and they'll know that. So it won't be like you're looking at the 6 month deadline and thinking, once I've passed that. But on the other hand, if at that month you're knocking it out of the park and doing a really, really good job, then we probably look to be having the chat of, this has been fantastic, this is something we want to continue, and it's that sort of those sort of conversations that you want to be having all the way up.
I think we are forgetting that people, we've had this company already, who just like to sit on the fact they're only 30 grand a year doing fuck all. And
look at
sorry. But there are people that we have employed, if you always employ the right people, that's brilliant. But you put a lot of pressure on 2 hours to employ the right person. That's like saying pick a wife in 2 hours or a husband in 2 hours.
And you're absolutely right, and it's very important for us to get the dismissal process right as well. And that's why, to me, that's the next priority to clarify what that process is. I think there is still, if somebody walks into the job and we thought they were great after the interview, but they're just total disaster, and within a couple of months, just craters, and everybody knows that this is not a good fit. That is a kind of probation period thing where we need to build this exceptional process to say, this is just not working out, let's end things, amicably in this early period. If it happens later, which who knows, it could happen sometime later to somebody, then we need to have that dismissal process in place to be able to deal with that. And that is, something I'm very committed to clarifying that process next week, ideally.
I presume there's also legal requirements, isn't there? It's a bit like, this is our return policy, but obviously your statutory rights still stand, isn't it?
Yeah, there's, we haven't, so that's one of the homeworks we have for next week, which is to also look into the legal ramifications of whatever dismissal process we want to pursue. Because there are legal requirements and they change depending on whether you've been here for 2 years or not, and there's all sorts of endless conversations with our lawyer to figure out exactly what's legal and what's not. But it's a process that needs to be in existence, needs to be functioning, needs to be accessible in cases where it needs to be used. Yeah.
2 questions. One, why did you choose citizenship as a term? I'm kind of worried that it's a bit like using trust building as a term for trial period, like you're giving something a name just because you don't actually really want to kind of haven't yet worked out what the employees of GrantTree are. That's one bit. 2, are we then all on, if this comes into effect, are we then all back on, are we all essentially on, trial?
Rolling contract.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever.
Citizenship is just a term that made sense to me, but yes, you're right, maybe it's not a useful term. We can full peopleship or peoplehood or whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Can I respond to that one?
But the second point.
And the second point?
Well, yeah, for the second point. Was that your second point?
That was my first point.
Okay.
That was my second point, was about, are we all on a...
Oh, the second point. Yeah. Second point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I was speaking to Wendy earlier about this, and for me, instead of like everyone being on like probation or whatever, rather I think it should be an ongoing conversation with people who just like from day one to people who've been here a couple of years, where you're checking in to see whether the purpose of the company and the purpose of the individual still align. They might be, I mean, you wouldn't really know on day one, but you need to be constantly checking in. And similarly, for people who have been here a while, it might change. People do change, people's wants and desires and motivations change over time. So I think it's just like, for me, how I see this working is just a constant sort of checking in, a constant communication, conversation with people, and making sure that it's not, because I think we all agree that this is better than the current trust building period, because I think for me at least it creates an us versus them culture where you're just, because behaviour changes after the trust building period.
It's an uneven playing field, so power-wise you're being evaluated by somebody who's got ultimate say.
Yeah, and I think if I were Daisy and Ish right now, I'd be quite terrified actually, because the phrase that I used to Wendy when we had a chat earlier was, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. Don't be that nail. You don't want to stick out, toe the line, and then kind of like relax after, which I think is incongruent with the culture of GrantTree, which is be your whole self. So yeah, I very much am for this.
Just to finish on Joe's point, you can see it both ways, that either nobody's on the trust building period or everybody's always in the trust building period. But what we're really saying is that the level of efforts that we put in if somebody who's been here for a couple of years was having performance issues is the level that we should put in if anybody is having performance issues. And so this process is still in place. We haven't had the case that somebody who's been here for a couple of years has had significant sustained performance issues. But if they were to have that, then we would work with them and try and figure out, first of all, we'll probably sit down and say, hey, what's going on? Is everything okay? Is there anything going on that's a problem and stuff? We need to change responsibilities or something, what can we do to help? And we wouldn't be going and having it's like waiting 3 months and then having an advice process where we consult everybody except that person, and then sit them down and say, right, well, I've talked to everybody except for you, and I've heard all these negative things about you, and I'm afraid we're going to just have to end it there. That would be totally incongruent with the way that we behave if we did that to somebody who's been here for a while, and it should apply also to people who have just joined, basically. We shouldn't go and have this process.
So could it potentially be something then like a constant review that takes over on peer reviews? Because for me, peer reviews kind of most of the time end up being criticisms of people's personalities and their characters rather than how they're actually doing within the company.
It is definitely one of these other connected topics. We have to address them in order. We can't do all of them at once. I would love if we could just sit for a week and like sort out all the processes in GrantTree, but it's not going to work like that because we're only human. To me, the dismissal maybe comes earlier, but the support for new joiners, the interviewing, the feedback, absolutely is a really crucial part of all this. Like, of course, communication is important to people working together. Strange that.
George, on the same.
Yeah, just for me, what Liam was saying just sounded like management. Somebody checks in with somebody who's been here a long time and see how they're getting on. Just, you know, being self-management, and then that just sounds like somebody's checking in with somebody who's been here a long time, seeing them. It just sounds like, to me, like management, and I thought that's what we're trying to get away from, so I'm just a little bit confused.
How does it sound like management?
We're checking in with somebody that's been here a long time, so therefore, by that definition, they're senior in inverted commas. And so you're checking in with them, and they're trying to assess how you're getting on.
So are you saying that people should not check in with people who have been here longer than that?
Why do they need to check it? You know, why don't they check with anybody?
I don't think it doesn't need to be a hierarchical relationship. I mean, right now it is. Like, it's, you know, people who've been there longer, assessing people who've been there for a short amount of time, and saying whether you have or haven't the job. I think like what I was suggesting more is just like it's not a hierarchical conversation. It's just having a conversation. Like, do you know? So whether that's the culture team having the conversation in the one-to-ones, whatever it is, it's a role that's being fulfilled. It's not I'm not like asking you to leave, or like it's not even telling someone to leave. It's just your motivations and desires and wants and your purpose aligns with the company's, because it might change over time.
But I'll also argue that I don't think anything comes always evolving. So does everybody actually always know the purpose? Or does only one person in this company have that right to make that decision?
I think it's more of a conversation. Like it's a decision that you would make for yourself as well. It's like, oh, maybe this isn't. You know, I'm not fulfilled. My purpose isn't fulfilled, and it isn't as aligned with the company's purpose as it once was. I don't know. Like I don't think it's a one-way decision. I think it's a conversation.
So it's facilitating it.
Yeah, it's communication.
Liam could go.
I know I was just saying that like there are, I think, times we've seen examples where people are doing a piece of work or something and it comes to an end, and to look for something new, or if we change the structure or something culturally, you can't have people that are left you know, a bit like, okay, I've got to figure something out here. So that sort of thing, what Liam's talking about, is kind of just, to me, sounds like kind of a peer way to keep conversation going, because we don't have this typical relationship that a manager would be kind of looking out for you and saying, okay, are you okay? Is your direction going okay? Do you want to talk about anything? Is there anything going on? We kind of fill that gap a little bit, and it can be quite isolating. I know, speaking from personal experience, if you're like trying to figure out what your next move is or whatever it is, that's in line with the company, and just if you don't feel like you've anyone to talk to about that, or no one else is interested, it's a bit shite. So basically, I kind of see a value in it from that perspective as well.
I know what you're saying, Liam. I think it's about what it is. It's checking the markers. What are you thinking? Where are you? What are you thinking? Just that constant dialogue. But I'd say also it goes back to getting the right people in, and I think you handled it very well. So I think if you get the right people in, they don't sit there with their laptop going, shit, my job's changed. What the fuck do I do? How am I going to approach this? You turn around and go, obviously my role's coming to an end. I've done myself out of job. Let's look. What are the next challenges? You found the next challenge, you've communicated with everybody, and it showed in peer review. No one was under an illusion that you weren't doing anything. You finished a role and you found a new one to jump into. So I think it does come down to getting the right people. I think we've got to stop building tools to solve the problems and bring the wrong people in. No, that's not the tool. That's.
No, I mean the whole thing is about taking away a tool which exists to stop us, you know, to deal with bringing the wrong people in. Taking away those tools. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think at the beginning as well, there needs to be like expectations need to be set in terms of like. So this is again like helping facilitate that conversation. And once they're established, this is what GrantTree is. This is what we do. So we provide feedback. But we also expect you to go and search out feedback as well. I mean, this is something that maybe was misplaced when we started at least, or something that needs to be encouraged more in the future. And like one point that we came to yesterday in terms of like facilitating, conversations. Like I keep coming back to this point, like leaderful. We're not a managerless organisation; we're a leaderful organisation. I really like that. And then like having peer training or peer coaching as like a program. So we through things like non-violent communication and other tools, have a coaching. I think Chris mentioned, it might work better in threes. I think that's probably right. But you have a program set out where you go through it in different stages to it. So one person who comes in at the beginning can be at stage one, and then we don't have to all do it at the same time because that doesn't really work. But like having stuff like that, I think will help as well in terms of like coaching and how to deal with the culture, how to have those difficult conversations. Because what do leaders do? They need to have difficult conversations with people, and we all need to do that and be comfortable doing that. So that's just the point out.
I was just going to pick up on, Will, your point earlier about the kind of idea of, at least having a 6-month window gives you a sense of certainty, because I think that chimes in with Joanna's point about, are we quote unquote all on probation? And for me, this comes back to the fact that we don't want things to come as a surprise to people if they're not going well. We don't want it to be that, oh, nothing was said to me, but I've come to the end of this arbitrary period and suddenly people say, oh, it wasn't going well. If things aren't going well, you should know about it. You should be getting feedback on it, and you should be getting support from people around you to put it right. So no one's going to turn around to you, because the whole point is trying to eliminate a situation where someone might turn around to you suddenly and say, it's over.
Can I build on that? And yeah, that's it. In terms of being comfortable as a new employee anyway, or what you need is certainty. That's what people generally feel most, is uncertainty. As a relatively new employee here, if I could alter the system, what I would do would be, I know roughly how well I'm doing, but I would like to have semi-formal feedback process in a few weeks' time, which would be my 3-month, after 3-month probation, which gives you a list of doing well here, doing badly here. You can pick that up, and then if I'm doing really badly through another 3 months, that's grounds to sack me. Great. And then you guys have covered your actual legal perspective, I suppose. And I've got somebody working, and that employee is useful.
If that would help you, why didn't you do it?
Yeah, I've been talking about it this morning.
Definitely. Yeah, following from what I even stated when I had my trustworthy period of what I thought I should have previously been done and what should have been communicated to me. And I've already said that maybe even before the 6 months, the 5 months, the 3rd month. We've already got criteria from the offset, but I do still think that is definitely valuable and moving forward. Because obviously we can go and see feedback from everyone, but it's because everyone's going to make, within the team, going to make a decision whether you stay or whether you go. So it's nice to know where you stand, in the midpoint of your trustworthy.
Yes, like I said, it's uncertainty, isn't it? It's still a constant factor.
But so, like, without disagreeing with the point that it's nice to get feedback and to get formal feedback. What we're saying here, to clarify, because I think you came in after the talk, is that we're getting rid of the trust building decision at the end. So there would not be a decision by everybody sort of talking to each other and deciding, oh, okay, so this person's going to stay, this person's going to go. So you don't have that thing anymore. That's the decision that we should be seeking advice on.
But I think what they've just highlighted is, and you've said you're getting rid of that, but what they're saying is it's that level of security. What you've not done is instill security.
So what you have with that is that security from day one, the same security that you have or that anybody else has in the company.
Okay, but that has to be very, very positively communicated. So what you're saying is, you keep doing an amazing job from day one, and you've got a lifetime with us. As soon as you stop doing a good job, that gets addressed, it gets picked up, and that's when you lose that security.
Well, I think that's true for, first of all, it's not as soon as, it's not like, you have 5 bad minutes on Monday morning and then that's
not be
I think that would be true, surely that would be true of anybody in the company, that, and no matter how long it would be true of me, if I just do a lousy job for, 3 months, 6 months, people will start to have trust with me and say, like, why are you doing that, and what's going on and stuff. And hopefully they won't be just having an advice process in the background and deciding to fire me, as we said earlier, but they will be having chats with me to try and help improve my performance. And if it can't be improved, then there will be at some point a chat about, hey, like, you know, maybe you should leave because like this is no longer the place for you. And that's a totally reasonable process. It's not an unfair process. As long as it's a consultative process, working with the person trying to improve things.
Which is why I think the peer coaching could come in handy for that.
Yeah.
Can I give one piece of feedback to this event? And I'm just as bad at this. And Andrew, you've done well on this today. Daniel, you've been your normal fantastic self. This is an advice-giving process. What you're doing is you're presenting your findings. I think everybody in the room who's finding out about this stuff that's new should be allowed to give their feedback without challenge or argument, because it is our feedback, and I don't want it. It's not a personal attack when we give our feedback. It's just this is how these are our reactions. These are how we make it feel. This is obviously things that have happened over a period of time. It is exhausting when you get into an argument or fight or things about it. We're just giving you this is our raw feedback. It's not personal. This is just how I feel at the moment in time based on what things happen.
So this is one of the features of the advice process, which is that sometimes you need to present something that you're asking for advice on, and this is what we try to do. Now, I've made a personal effort over the last day and a half to have a chat with a lot of people to get their personal feedback, and we're now having a chat to get feedback in a kind of group setting, and we've not made this decision, and if you've got any further feedback either by email or in person, you know, we've not made the decision yet, and obviously I really want to make the right decision here. I don't want to be, you know, it's going to cost us if I make the wrong decision here. So I'm absolutely open for further feedback in private, one way via email or two way via conversation for the next few days. I'm trying to make a decision on this by the end of the week, but I'm leaving it open.
Is this an example of?
Is this? I think
exactly that.
But people just don't have all of the information to make a decision on it. So it's kind of like me saying, I'm going to try and find a new way of bringing in new sales. Oh, fantastic! That sounds brilliant. And then one end of it, it's like this thing's going to cost us like £200,000. It's like, well, maybe that's not actually the best way of doing it. But if, for example, if you basically said, we've done this and we've explored this, these are potentially ramifications, these are the things we've got in place, which are probably going to answer many of the people's concerns that they have, and then it enables people to actually run with it. It's much more of a fully formed argument, because that is a concept. It is a concept. It's fantastic. I don't think anyone here is going to say, no, that's not in line with GT's values and what we're here to do, completely. But in terms of actually implementing it, there could be many bad ramifications of doing it. So those things need to be thought out and then presented before it goes any further. Otherwise, everybody's going to say yes to that, and then we could get further down the line. There could be some really, you know.
So, to answer, seeing as I've taken on myself to make this decision, I totally appreciate those concerns, and I'm very, very well aware of those. I want to clarify one thing, which is it's not everybody's being asked to make a decision. Everybody's being asked to provide input into a decision that's being made, and it is an advice process. Everybody is being listened to, and I'm making a personal effort to listen to everybody. But ultimately, as per the advice process, the decision is being made by one person. Secondly, we will be working on those as well. So it's not like we're ignoring them and saying, no, it's going to be somebody else's problems. It's going to be the same people working on those ramifications as me, Andrew, Wede, and so we're not kind of pushing that on to somebody else.
And I get that, but the ramifications will often be found by the people within the team who are in action on those processes that you're putting in place. So all I'm saying is, in terms of just this as a concept, everybody's on board with it, but it's not, people aren't just agreeing to one thing, it's like a domino effect. You're basically pushing this one thing down, and many other actions are going to come off the back of it, but people don't know what those things are going to be yet. So it's basically saying, we're after your advice on this, but we can only give you advice on something that's very limited because we've not all explored the other areas that's going to affect.
It's by far not the first nor the last decision that we're going to make, either individually or as a company, where we don't have all the facts and all the consequences and all the implications. It's something I guess I'm quite comfortable with as an entrepreneur. I'm used to operating in situation is a lot more uncertainty.
It's not about being uncomfortable with uncertainty or taking risks. I don't feel it's that. I do feel it's about giving people more of a fuller picture about what this decision is, rather than just a snippet of the decision.
So people want to. So from what I'm hearing as well, and I think from listening to feedback and also speaking with people, is that more consultation on the ramifications. So before going ahead, and this is the feedback as I hear from what you're saying, is that what are the ramifications of this? If we were to go and approach any of the kind of the other factors around feedback giving, mentoring, coaching, development, hiring, what's the expectations, and actually making an effort to go and make sure to speak with everybody in the different teams, and how this particular decision is going to impact the team who essentially are going to be performing these things and be operating it.
Yeah.
So to ensure that that actually happens, and I think that's what you're saying here as well, right? This is, so which is what will happen.
And I think that echoes what.
And this is what Don is saying as well. Yeah.
Joe.
Yeah, so mine's kind of on this thing. What would be super nice would be maybe just because I'm a bit of planning obsessive would kind of on the culture side to actually have what you're looking at doing when you're going to be looking at it, and kind of your timeline for the next month, 2 months, 3 months, so that everyone is actually kind of aware and can highlight which bits interconnect with each other and then what you're kind of trying to achieve at the end. Because what I've sort of taken away from this is that maybe people feel it's a bit kind of ad hoc, it's as stuff comes along, which then doesn't really give the rest of us a chance to properly think about it if it's just sort of presented to you and you have a very short amount of time to think about it. It would be nice to kind of see what we're actually trying to achieve overall. I don't know if that's just me being too much of a planning freak.
Okay, fair. Which,
the best way to get an idea of what we're trying to achieve overall is actually to read those books on the reading list on my website on Open Cultures. So the Seminar, the Reinventing Organizations, Happiness, Joy at Work. There's also another one I'm reading right now.
Yeah, Joe, find the time to do that.
But that's a way to inform yourself about the direction that we're going in.
So
that is a way. I don't want to. I'm concerned actually that might be unintentionally flippant. In that people, I know, but I'm just saying that I'm just aware that could be perceived that way.
Okay.
So actually, bearing in mind that I don't. Yeah. But just that perhaps actually the thing is that maybe we could make an effort here to make clear what it is that we're actually wanting to do, what's the vision here, and making that more explicit in a concise way, in a much more accessible way.
Yeah, because that's, those books, Dynamic Times, reviews and everything, but that is, first of all, it's other people's ideas, and it's a vision, correct, but it's not how it's actually going to be to apply to GrantTree and how we're going to adapt it and use it and help it to build us and actually fit into the business and the kind of, the culture and the people that are here. And it may be that, Dan, you can sit and read them and just see how it all slots in, but there's 24 other people that don't necessarily think in the same way or see it in the same way. So that's my kind of point on that.
You'd like to have more of an overview, you'd like to have more of a sense where each idea fits into a framework so that you can understand it.
Yeah.
Okay, you can go away and think about that.
That's what we ask from everybody in every area of the business.
Yeah.
That's what every single person that has every single role in this company has to do and has been asked to do as part of self-management.
Good point, Joe. I agree with you on that. But secondly, just want to clarify, because I missed the start, which I apologise about as well. Is this whole conversation just about dropping the probation period, just changing the probation period, not having one? Is that the whole conversation?
That's where it started, yeah.
What genuinely is changing apart from the wording? What's actually changing?
There's no more votes at the end of this.
Okay, so pretty much not a lot. Because after 6 months, 6 months is a good chunk of time to realise if somebody's performing or not, if they're right for this company or not. So no matter if you have the probation period or not, after 6 months, people probably much make an opinion on it. So actually, we just wasted probably a week of your time, an hour of our time, talking about something that's really quite.
That's a very aggressive statement.
I'm just saying, I came across frustrated really, because I just think that there are bigger things to worry about than just dropping what's going to be the process. You can drop that word all you like. At the end of the day, you're going to have a vote after 6 months and go, should you be in this company anymore? Are you right for this company? Is this where we need to be? No, be up to about 6 months, because that's the natural time to give somebody to see what is actually how people actually get into this company, and how they get accepted into this company, and how they fit into this company, and how they maybe leave this company, how they exit this company 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, 6 months down the line. That's, I just feel that we're just not doing the stuff we really need to do, and we're concentrating on stuff that we just don't really need, just semantics. And
it sounds like at the same time you're saying that what we're doing is a waste of time, and at the same time you're saying you want more of what we're doing. You have to pick your
No, I'm not telling you at all. Stop twisting my words. All I'm saying is that I don't think this is the most important thing. I think that there's more important things in this company that need the culture guys to work, people to work on, and really nail down. And I don't think this is it. I just think you're barking on the wrong twist.
With the best one involved, George, what are some of those things? Because I'll make an observation right now. Sorry, Andrew, I just want to say this. I'll make this observation, and I'd rather not do this remotely. But what I've heard primarily from you, I've specifically heard from you right now, there's a lot of negativity about this. And you're not present right now. You're away doing Treehouse, and occasionally you pop up and you throw these brickbats at people like you just done to Dan, and then disappear again. And I don't think it's fair. So what I think Dan's somebody who's right. You said, this is a waste of time, but actually I want more stuff that's related to this. So, what is it? What do you want to see? Because you're obviously unhappy with this. What is it you actually want to see?
Can I suggest that the two of you pick that discussion up later?
Not to because I'm not. I think there's a lot of conversations going on here, but this is a feedback process. There's a lot of similar feelings coming back. So that's the feelings are from a majority, and what I'm feeling is resistance for it, and that's what's draining. Is you ask for feedback, you get it, and then we get, to quote, stonewalled, and that's what becomes draining. And I find myself getting fired up because I'm like, the only way I can give feedback is by getting to an argument with you. And that's just unfair because it is absolutely sapping. And a few people have said this, and you just turn around to George and say, George is being aggressive, when Joanna made a fucking brilliant point, which I've hip-chatted her, and you went, read a book. That is just as aggressive, Daniel.
I think that this is a discussion that maybe the three of us should take elsewhere rather than have in front of everybody, because I think it's about the interpersonal dynamic here and the fact that you don't feel that you're being heard by us. And that concerns me. Like, I would like you to feel that you're being heard. And one of the things that I was hoping to say then, when obviously Chris was able to join the conversation, was just to say, could we just have a second to just actually acknowledge that we've heard what George is saying, which is that he doesn't feel that this is the priority. And that's a view that he's entitled to hold, and that he's entitled to feedback. And I hear him also saying that he doesn't think that this is a very big change. I happen to disagree, but I think that you're right on that maybe in this Q&A, we should make more space to hear what people are saying, and then find time to respond later. And maybe that's a practice that we can bring into all of our meetings, that if somebody brings something that they'd like a decision on, everyone has a chance to speak before the person who brought the proposal can then re-enter the dialogue and respond. And maybe that will help people feel that they're being heard. Communication is difficult. Communication is complicated. But we're all trying. Can we give each other credit that we're at least all trying, even if we don't always succeed? Okay. I think let's wrap up there. Thanks very much, everyone. Really appreciate your time.